So Lance Latkiewicz was a member of last year's 40 Under 40, and he approached me with the idea of Poka-Yoke, which I'd never heard of, but is the idea of mistake-proofing your operation, which sounds pretty good to me. My operation doesn't make any mistakes, but I know that there are some that do, so that's why Lance is here for you. So anyway, so Lance is going to discuss Poka-Yoke, concept that he learned during a decade spent in the automotive industry. Defined as mistake-proofing or error prevention, Lance will share how Poka-Yoke interventions have improved picking accuracy, put-away accuracy, and led to more accurate deliveries and an overall enhanced customer experience. Join me in welcoming Lance Latkiewicz.
We are talking operational Poka-Yoke today. Just show of hands, who knows what Poka-Yoke is as a concept? Have you heard of it before? You probably engage in it with your operation unknowingly at times, right? Because you're probably always thinking about mistake proofing and how to fix a problem. Notice it says set up your operation to reduce rework. This was a big topic to tackle in the 25, 30 minutes I have. So I sort of backed up and I wanted to focus on the things that we did at Man's Lumber and Home that allowed us to set up the operation to understand who was making the errors, where were they being made, what stage in the life cycle, of the order life cycle were they happening at, so that we could kind of not guess, but effectively root cause analysis, find the solution, and actually reach a reliable first-time pass rate, which is what we were always looking for. So what was our overall organizational effectiveness? How often was an order going from start to finish and not needing any correction at all, not needing to be reworked or touched again? So what you can expect today, I'll go over introduction and background of myself. I'll go over what is Poka-Yoke, why would you want to engage in this concept, and then I'll get into the setup and what we did and what feedback loops we set up so we understood and had a really good game plan on what was taking place, where the errors were by who. And then you identify your life cycle sequence. We call it our profit pathway. Places like Amazon call it their happy path. It probably looks a lot like your guys' in this room today. So define measurements along the pathway, our pre-delivery phase, and then the setup of our operational feedback loops, and that's a host of internal, external, and satisfaction surveys. And then what do we do once we have all that data is we convert it over a week's time or a month's time into a first-time pass percentage, so you understand how effective you're operating start to finish as a total organization, right? So it's not just your yard guys or your drivers, it's your order entry takers, it's your facilitators, it's your salespeople on down. Then you histogram that data, you gotta distribute the data, you gotta figure out what to do with it, where do you start, where do you attack first. Then I'll go over some quick Poka-Yoke types, and then I will wrap up from there. So introduction and background myself, again, I am Lance Latkiewicz, I'm the Director of Operations at Man's Lumber and Home. We are an LBM Top 50 organization. It's a Metro Detroit, Southeast Michigan facility. We have 6 branches in the area. Our Canton branch is the biggest. We'll do about $120 million out of that branch alone, and then the rest are more smaller satellite branches. I was in the inaugural Top 40 Under 40 class at this conference last year. Really cool information sharing that happens here. My industry before this, everything was NDA'd. You couldn't discuss anything. You dealt with suppliers that had all kinds of patents and pending and specific for your vehicle. You couldn't talk about anything. So this is really cool to see the information and ideas passed along in this room. So I spent 12 years in automotive. I was in stamping, assembly, part distribution. I was a plant manager at a Mopar National Depot, so that was a 2 million square foot warehouse just outside of Detroit in Warren, Michigan. We were the national depot, so we were focused on system fill, and we were basically doing trans orders to the field depots for their facing fill, and then dealers in that region ordered from the field depots. And then I spent time at a company called Mahindra. You guys may know Mahindra for their tractors. They have a small North American vehicle footprint outside of Detroit. I was actually the program manager for the United States Postal Service's next generation delivery vehicle program. So we were kind of setting up prototypes to build the next vehicles for the Postal Service program, and we were going through that bid process. And then my last stint in automotive, I was the director of service operations with a battery electric vehicle startup company. They went public on the NASDAQ, and 8 months later they went bankrupt. So what is Poka-Yoke? In its broadest definition, it is any behavior shaping constraint of a process, and that could have multiple steps in the process that are attempting to constrain certain behaviors, intended to prevent incorrect operation by the user or to make a mistake harder to make, okay? So it's twofold. You either want to set up your process and design your process so that the error can't take place, or you want to set up something more defensive, so that's preventive, or you want to set up something defensive where the operator is being told in the act that they're making the error and that they stop, okay? Really hard to do in our operations. Our operations are really a lot of man-to-man or man-to-material. It's simpler when you're in a man-to-machine interface operation. Machines you can set up sensors and lasers and program smart features in machines. You've got to really rely on your people, right? Because they have a high degree of autonomy and high degrees of freedom. You have to make sure that they are adhering to the steps that you are taking and putting in place, and that makes it harder when you're relying on humans over machines. So here are some simple daily life examples of some Poka-Yokes. These are product designs with the idea in place to make the use simpler on the operator. So something as simple as your washing machine, right? It's programmed, it will not start and run unless the door's closed, right? That is a design feature. Right? If it wasn't there, you can bet there will be people who are starting that machine and flooding their washing room out. And the product maker wants to keep people from those mistakes. One you guys probably use every day, spell check, right? As you're typing something out and it's wrong, it's notifying you in the act of it. It's giving your squiggly lines, it's telling you this is wrong. And some other ones here, I don't have to go through every one. So here's an example at Man's Lumber and Home that we used. This is our vertical storage for our trim. We were having a lot of picking accuracy issues in this area, and once we got the data and went to the site and watched and looked, what we found is that we were really restocking incorrectly. So the trim profiles are really hard to tell from the eye if it's the right one or not. And so basically what we did is we picked about the 12 to 15 fastest moving product at the bins, and we hung the trim template. So we hung the trim template and basically set up a new process where when you go to restock that, cut up in one of the bundles and match that template up against the trim profile and make sure you've got the right fit. Okay, so that was really useful and helped the operators save some restocking errors. So another next level advancement that we're looking to do that is really a strong Poka-Yoke intervention. This is our door shop, and this is our Caval line. So we are talking to this group that I knew from my time in automotive to help us set up vision systems and automated controls. So this system hovers cameras over your door line, and basically it works on illumination and cameras and optics, and you can feed this smart camera through the program things you want it to look for, whether it's surface level defects or scratches in the slab, whether it's wrong hinge color, whether it's wrong bore set, and it'll measure tolerances and reveals, and it'll stop and alert the operator when something's not right on the door they're making, right? So it's attempting to keep you from sending out a door wrong, and ideally what it's doing is it's catching the mistake soon in the build sequence, so you're not wasting another jam, cutting a head not needed, using another stop, or more staples, right? It's trying to stop it immediately so you don't burn more consumables. So why would you want to engage in Poka-Yoke, right? These are pretty simple to understand. Quality control, customer service and experience, reduce rework, which we're going to talk about. Especially, I noted this, especially if you're in a same day or next day shipping environment. If you have a late cutoff time and you're accepting orders and you're delivering them the next day or even the same day, you have very little visibility to what tomorrow's volume and forecast looks like. the last thing you want to be doing is running around fixing a bunch of mistakes or things that you shipped wrong and taxing your fleet and taxing your drivers on, go back over here and fix this, go back over here and move that. You left this on the left side of the driveway, the customer's car was in the garage and now they can't back out, right? Things like that. And then it helps you avoid customer breakage. So especially through a demand growth period, so having systems in place to set up the act of Poka-Yoke is critical, specifically for periods of growth. If sales and marketing does their part and captures demand and converts it, operations must fulfill the service and deliver quality while volume increases so the customer experience doesn't break, right? And if you are going through a growth period, then these systems that you have in place, if you can capture all this data where things are going wrong and you can kind of stratify it, it helps you correct it sooner, okay? So when I say setup, I mean the process we use to go ahead to capture all the things we were doing that were causing us to touch something again, right? To stop something in our day, change the address on an order, or repick something because we picked it wrong, or go ship something again because it was damaged. So step one in this was for us to determine our life cycles, our order life cycle sequence. So we call this our profit pathway from point A all the way down, your order entry phase, dispatch routing phase, pre-delivery, pick point load build, quality check, which is something we do internally, truck loading, delivery, and then your customer experience and overall effectiveness. So once you have that kind of identified, I'm sure it looks a lot like ours looks a lot like all of yours. Then you kind of go through and decide, how are we going to measure these things, okay? So ultimately, and this doesn't mean much to you guys, but I will get into it in the next slides. IER and EER is basically just internal error reporting that we do with our quality checker. And then external error reporting is a system we've set up with our sales team. And if we have a delivered error, how are we capturing all that and getting it back so we can centralize it, okay? So all the way on down, you want to eventually get to the point where you understand your overall effectiveness as an organization and what your first time pass score is. Really good first time pass is 95%, great's 96 to 98, the elites are in the 99 percentile. A quick side note, there's this concept called the rework loop, which here you'll see the same order sequence as the pages and the slides I had before, but the concept is you want to catch things as soon as you can and shorten that rework loop, because the sooner in the order cycle that you catch the issue, obviously the less resources and time and cost it is involved to fix it, right? So as an example, our pre-delivery phase, our pre-delivery coordinator is often catching wrong addresses, right? Just through his outreach to customers, make sure they're ready for their order, make sure they're ready for their delivery. Do you have any special shipping instructions we should be concerned with or know about? And he does a check on the address, right? It's much better to catch it there at pre-delivery than it is halfway down the road and your driver's, already in transit, okay? So that's a good example of the rework loop concept. So pre-delivery, we sort of set up a customizable approach to our pre-delivery. This here is our pre-delivery contact list. Why we want to do this, obviously, is issue avoidance. It involves and engages the customer. We capture any change and solicit information from them for their delivery, and it gives them a pretty good customer experience. So on the left column, you'll see that first triangle that says notified. This is a smart view we created in BizTrack for our pre-delivery coordinator. It's really just a checklist for him to go through and see if I've notified this person already or not for their delivery tomorrow. So it's just a working punch list for the pre-delivery coordinator to check off. The next one is delivery count. So as many of your customers, we have people who are on their 5,000th delivery with us. Well, sometimes we will come across one where it's a first-time delivery. So our pre-delivery coordinator will see this person's never gotten a delivery before. Then we go through and we sort of onboard that customer. He calls that customer directly and says, this is Man's Lumber and Home. I know you're expecting a delivery tomorrow. And he goes through these this contact properties of customization that I'll get to in the next slide, and how we set up a contact for their preferred method of contact, right? Some people want to be texted, some people want to be called, some people want emails, some people want ETAs, some people want their pending, some people want some of the text services we offer, not all of them. So we try to set them up the way they want to be met. So that's here on this page, pre-delivery. So this is in contact properties. That's a diverse activity meant to engage customers how they prefer. So we think it improves the chance of a response, right? Before we deliver, we want to make sure we touch that customer, we talk to them, they at least text us back, say, yep, you're good to go, no special instructions. So we can have the same customer that has different contacts, and they may have different preferences. So we set that up in this specific contact preferences view, and it allows for great but different experiences for the customers, okay? Now, why would we want to do this? It reduces refused deliveries. It eliminates additional trips, sets builders up for success, sets your drivers up for success. You can leave material where it's requested, right? The customers will reply back to the text, say, yep, thank you so much. That address is right. Please leave this in the back corner of the garage. Great. And then you want to impact the site or homeowner as little as possible. Those are all the kind of the advantageous reasons why you'd want to get into this and how pre-delivery activity can help you reduce a lot of rework and offer a very sound delivery the first time. So, setup process, step 4. Now I'm getting into the operational feedback loops that I talked about. This is the internal error reporting side. So this is all pre-shipment, okay? What you're trying to do here is limit the amount of delivered errors that you make, right? So you're basically trying to shorten that rework loop. So we have a quality checker here. He checks every load that's in stage, that's outbound. He's checking for right product, he's checking for quality, he's checking to make sure the load was built right, quantity, accuracy, right product, good packaging, no damage, things like that. So if it's good, he leaves a green check, quality checked, it's counted, it's set. If it's inaccurate, this is where we start our internal reporting on errors. He'll red tag it, and he will all of our operators at our sites are on Microsoft Teams. So he will Microsoft Teams message the operator and say, hey, Mike, you built this load. It's 10 boards short. It's over here in this location. You need to come fix it before it heads out, okay? So we send that on Microsoft Teams directly to the operator who picked it wrong. Then that person, our quality checker at the end of the day, kind of goes into this SharePoint list and creates all the issues that he had that day right here. So you'll see load issue on the left, the cart number, if the order was fixed or not, they track that, what the issue description was, and they assign that problem to the area supervisor. So it has, not only does the operator get notified on Teams, but the supervisor gets notified right away that one of his pickers has an issue and that it needs corrected. Now, we kind of go through this weekly. So this is a bit of a messy view, and I apologize about that. But this is what we look at weekly around internal errors. So we kind of bucket everything, the total number of days, the total number of errors we caught internally, and we break it down by operator. We break it down by, whether it's a deck filler, a rough package, a rough filler, was it a door that we built? And so we just try to stratify that data to get to understand how many errors we're making in a day internally, how are we catching it, who's the ones making it, so we have good insight on on how our operators perform and how they behave. This is an extension of that same weekly summary that we do. This is kind of breaking it down by operator. So user ID is on the left, right there, and then all the different error types are across the top. So if that person made an error on that day, we check it and mark it, and then it moves on to the next big data that we look at, and we attempt to kind of add a cost to it on the right, so that when we sit operators down and let them notify them about their mistakes they're making, we try to assign a cost to it so they understand the relevance to it. So moving on, this is the second operational feedback loop for errors. This is external errors. So what does that mean? That means we delivered it. It left the gates, we didn't catch it, either got damaged in transit, or we didn't catch that it was mispicked or short picked or the wrong product, and it got to a customer, right? So most of the time our customers are good at letting our salespeople know, but we were not good at capturing and funneling all that data to collect it, right? So we created a simple rules-based system with Microsoft Outlook. So the customer issues, our salesperson will basically will send an email to our dispatch team with the word error in the subject line. That is a Microsoft rule that if the word error comes through to our dispatch inbox with the subject line, with error in the subject line, it jumps right into its own folder in dispatch right there for error tracking. And the first thing we got to do is obviously triage the issue. But then secondly, we go through at the end of the day all of the delivered errors that came in as reported through Outlook and through our error inbox. We then collect that and we turn it into a notepad case. So we use these notepad cases that BizTrack offers in the sales order. And you'll see here, it gives a case status, it assigns a case number, it'll give you the sales order information, what branch it was at, reason for the case, so it's an operations error, and then other reason would be what subcategory under operations error that may be, and then the person can write a little description in the text box of what happened and a little bit more detail on the error. After that, we have a big smart view that shows all these notepad cases so that we can go access, long time worth of data to see. And then the third feedback loop is customer satisfaction and feedback surveys. So this is our third option. We send a follow-up text to anyone who got a delivery or anyone who came through and had a will call pickup. It's a really simple rating system, 1 to 5, right? Anything 3 or below comes to me in a BizTrack message. It comes to me in my inbox. The order number, the sale type, when was it picked up or delivered, date and time. It gives me the contact name, the contact number, and that their rating was a very dissatisfied here. So I every time these come to my inbox, I call that customer personally and talk them through what happened. Sometimes it's got really nothing to do. Sometimes they're mad about the lead time, right? So you just take it for is what it is, and they love that we call them and talk to them and ask them, what could we have done to make it better? What happened? Is there anything we need to know that we're not aware of? And then we go back in after this and submit this error. If it wasn't already, we submit that through the same notepad case that I just went through last slide, okay? Oh, I went back. Okay, so now you have all this data. You have internal errors that you're collecting. You have external errors that are being delivered to you from the field. You're getting feedback from your customer satisfaction surveys. Now you got to centralize all this data and figure out what to do with it. So you want to convert the reported issues against the total number of orders you fulfilled. So whether you're doing that over a week or a month, it's just really simple. You go back to your data and you do a juxtaposition, right? We did 3,709 delivery or will call orders in this time frame in November last year, and we had 53 errors for a 99% success rate. That's wrong. I'll tell you that. We hover between 97 and 98, so I think someone was trying to make us look better for this presentation. So now that you've got that, now comes the time, now you're set up, right? You have reliable feedback loops, you're catching everything, because even if you catch something at pre-delivery and it doesn't reach your customer, it's still an error. You still got to track it. It costs somebody, I don't care if it's a minute, it cost them a minute of their time that they had to go fix something that someone else made a mistake on, okay? And then if you get enough of those wrong addresses or silly order entry mistakes, you want to be able to go back to the people in the organization who are making these mistakes and make them aware of what they're doing. So then you want to distribute the quantitative data. A histogram approach is really simple. It prioritizes the top occurrence of errors, left to right, big to small, and then you get an idea. So this one here is quantity under. So we're short picking. Most of the time, a lot of times in this view, we were short picking orders. The second one is you want to prioritize the top occurrence of stages where those errors were occurring. So here in this view, for this sake, it's your order entry issues, right on down, pick point, delivery, truck loading. Now I've got all that, and it's time to integrate some of that data into action. This is where Poka-Yoke as a concept can be as much as you can be creative with your team, okay? There really is no rules anymore at this point. So I just wanted to kind of go through some of the Poka-Yoke types, and you'll see as I read the strict definition, you'll see where it's hard to implement some of these in our world of lumber yards and warehouses. So Poka-Yoke, 2 types, preventive and defensive. Preventive has 2, control method and warning method. Control method relies on automation to stop or prevent errors in a manufacturing setting. The warning method alerts operators before an error happens via light, sound, beep, color messages. So if anyone's on their RFID scanners, and you have like the Epicor WMS system, it's attempting to do that for your operators at times. If you go to scan a cart tag and put it on a truck that it doesn't belong on, it'll say invalid. It won't let your operator do that, right? So that's a kind of a version with their RFID scanners that is attempting to make your operators not make so many mistakes. And then down to defensive. So there's a contact method, uses sensory devices to identify defects or abnormalities in a product shape, color, dimensions. Fixed value method involves warning an operator when a specified number of actions has not been met. And then motion step. Each step depends on the successful completion of its preceding steps, so mechanical or software-based interlocks that enforce correct operator use. So in a nutshell, I've got all this data, I histogrammed out the data, I distributed it, I know where our biggest occurrence of errors are, and I know at what stage they're happening at. What do I go do about this now? Well, this is how you do it. You do a Gemba walk. I think somebody up here already brought up a Gemba walk at one time. That's you, yourself, your team leaders, your operators. You go to the site, walk it, observe it, watch material being picked, watch how they're using their lumber buddy if they use that, watch how they're entering the aisles, watch how material's coming in and out, watch how they're restocking it, and you got to really put your thinking cap on with your team and ask the operators their opinion. Why do you think you're short picking so much? Why do you think this is happening? What's causing you problems? They may say, well, I'm in the middle of my pick all the time and I got to go back and replenish. I run out of stock in dedicated and I forget to count them at, right? So then you got to kind of go through and figure out what's the best way to combat some of that. So then you would do a 5 why root cause analysis. Has anyone here done a 5 why? If you have, you'll know they're really hard. By the time you're at the 3rd or 4th or 5th why, you're like running out of answers. So if you do them right and do them diligently, you can get to the root cause. You don't want to really engage in any problem solutions until you feel like you have the good root cause. Otherwise, it's just going to surface itself again. So then if you feel like you got a strong root cause, you do your PDCA, which is a plan, do, check, act sequence. You probably come up with some sort of solution you're going to put in place and implement. And then you do it, you check it, and it's no different than anything else. You keep rechecking the data, you keep collecting data as you have for all the times previously, and see if you've impacted that first time pass score at all. See if you've reduced any of those short picks. See if you've reduced some of those order entry errors, okay? And, in closing, as I wrap some of this up, I think what I really want to, the Poka-Yoke side, like I said, it's as free and as creative as you can be with problem solving. The setting up yourself to understand, to have reliable data on who's doing what, where it's breaking down at. You can do it however you wanted. This has worked for us pretty well. It's been reliable. It's been, our customer satisfaction ratings have gone up. Our customers are happy with their deliveries. They love the pre-delivery phase we have. So I just wanted to make sure I got the point across that you can set your operation up to filter all this data really well, so you can then go and problem solve and not just guess, okay? And that's all I got.
What's a pre-delivery phase?
Huh?
What's a pre-delivery phase?
Pre-delivery.
Oh, pre.
Pre-delivery.
Pre, and why?
No. Pre-delivery, right? So, yeah. I'll be around the rest of the day too. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to grab me. My number's on here, my email's on here. Anyone can reach out at any time, okay? All right, thanks guys.